Hi everyone. So I'm a professor at the FHNW in Alton, and I teach databases and programming, and I also supervise a lot of projects. And we had a customer here. Thomas Hanne is a prof, and he teaches logistics and optimization and algorithms in that area. So the idea was, could we have a game that would help him to teach? And this is just the first part of it. We didn't get that far, but we have a good prototype that seems to be working okay. So the work was done by a master's student, Attila Güler, and he did all this work himself, had an interview with Thomas to ask about the requirements, and then followed quite a disciplined approach in developing this. So why logistics? Logistics is, in Switzerland, really very, very important. And there are several points to mention there. Most of the people don't know really what logistics are, what topic it is. And the economy needs lots of people to work in that area. And then when young people decide what to do, they don't know what logistics is an option. They just don't know it, you know. So one of the ideas was to inform. So the general public could be informed about this game. The game could be played somewhere in a foyer of the school or of a vocational school or in a museum to inform. And the logistics term itself is very, very old. It's a military, comes from the military. It deals with basically provisioning your army with enough supplies so they can fight, eat, move around. You move their whatever parts they require, and you make sure it all works smoothly. Logistics is now used in the our economic area because in Switzerland we move a lot of goods from one place to another. And also each company needs logistics, if it's a larger company, to move their supplies and other parts. Logistics is not easy to study because at a certain level there are mathematical concepts and algorithms which allow you to optimize those operations. And there are very high customer expectations. So in Switzerland, people get terribly irritated if the train is 5 minutes late and if they miss the connection. So there's a lot of economics factors that are important, and there are very high challenges. And that's why courses in supply chain management in particular are very popular at most business schools and universities in this area. So the question was how to design a serious game which would raise interest in logistics and teach some fundamentals. So question of design in games in general and serious games in particular has not been researched that well. There is some work, but there are no guidelines saying, you know, I want a game for logistics for this type of group of people. I'm going to design like this, you know, 1, 2, 3. So this is not a solved issue. And the other question is, can a game teach and entertain at the same time? Is that okay? Does it work? And then we wanted to focus on a particular segment of people who are not academic. There could be school children, you know, age 12, 13, and they would learn something about logistics. And we could also use it in business courses to attract people to take courses about logistics. So the design now, how Attila did it. He decided to use this design canvas, and I'll go through it briefly. So the main thing from Thomas Hanne was that we want to convey the VRP challenge. It's a vehicle routing problem. You have certain places where the goods have to be delivered to, and you have a number of vehicles, and you've got goods. So you want to route those things optimally. In this particular game, we decided that to start with, that's too complex. So there's going to be a simple game about fundamental cargo ships. And he selected 4 types of ships that you'll see later, and found the way of importing this material into the game. So there's a container, tanker, ro-ro ship, bulk carrier. And then the players should be 12 years or older, and there's no prior knowledge required. So anyone in the street should be able to play it. And we see that for education, museum, and fairs. So now we're going, so we've covered the two blocks, the intention and players. Now we're going to the experience. So he's decided on a racing game and a third-person game. And in the interaction, we just use those, we can use the keyboard to manipulate the movement on the screen, and we can use another button for top view. I'll show that in detail in a second. And the feedback is game penalty for wrong ship selection. So if you select the wrong ship, because the idea is to learn about the ship types, the 4 ship types, if you select the wrong ship, there is a time penalty. And there is a ranking screen which tells you how you're doing. Then for the mechanics, basically the main choice is you select the right ship for the freight that you have to deliver. So you have to match ship to freight, and you want to visit all the harbors on the map. So you have a number of harbors, and you just have to decide which way to go. And this makes it clear for the student or for someone who is routing their ship that there is a problem there on how to optimize this, how to do it fast. And because there is this element of learning about how to use the game and then actually competing, there are 2 modes. So there's a choice there, single player mode for engaging and learning the gameplay, and then a multiplayer competitive mode. And in terms of impact, it should be fun, it should increase the interest in logistics, and it should give you some knowledge about cargo ships and about the vehicle routing problem, about the complexity of routing. At the bottom, we've got those various other factors in the canvas. So return on investment for the player will be fun and learning. So there are 2 things. It should be a nice play and should learn a little bit. And for the developer, natural was the proof of the methodology and exercise and programming and seeing something beautiful to come up out of it at the end. The game should be easy to learn, and mastering the multiplayer is challenging because you have a complex situation where you're competing. So this is a second level. This is quite hard, I would say. The channels are the scientific environment, museums, and fairs. It's on Windows 10 at the moment, and we haven't got any market position defined. So the design is simple. Each player gets a ship and transports the freight to all the ports. So you select the ship, and then you deliver freight to all harbors on the map. And then, as you learn that, you have 4 levels. So you have difficulty, rising difficulty. You can go through them 4, or you can skip some if you want to. And there is a multiplayer level where you compete. So the visuals I found them really cool. There is the sea and the harbors and the islands and harbors, and each level has harbors. The landscape has the same size for all levels, so it's similar. However, as you move around, you see that it changes. So it's quite good to actually play and have fun doing that. And then he's inserted 4 ships that he bought into the game. And there's a freight mode camera which is attached to the ship. So the playtest, now we're coming to the experiment. We had an experiment. Because it's a master thesis, this is limited in terms of the number of participants. He found 4 people. Then they were giving a pre-playtest survey about the ships, because that was the knowledge that they were supposed to acquire during playing. Then they played the single-player game until they wanted to, they said they were ready for the next part. And then they had multiplayer mode against each other. And then they had a post-playtest survey. So the results, everyone played this game. Basically, this is what it looks like. You have, after you've selected the ship, you basically see all those islands, and you try to see, you can recognize them by seeing the cranes, because the cranes are the most prominent things. And as you approach, there is this red line which shows you the area that you have to hit. That means you've delivered the goods. And then it turns to green, and then you can move on to the next port. So, did people like it? So, were you motivated to keep playing the game after the first part? So, after this learning part, do you want to play in the multiplayer part? And everyone said yes. And then, did you enjoy it? And 3 out of 4 said yes. And 1 person wasn't that keen. It's moderately fun. And then the learning and flow, was it good? A good experience? So everyone said that actually this opened up their eyes to what logistics is and what routing problems are. So this was positive. And then there was a question about frustrating moments. And as you can see, the level of frustration was quite high, and we'll come back to that. So that only became clear in the survey where they could fill in free-form text, right? Because when you have a question, yes, no, you cannot say much, but then they were talking about it. So appeal. So the graphics were found to be very appealing, outstanding or above average, and the user interface was rated also very highly. And now the knowledge stuff. So before the game, as you see above, people knew stuff about knew what a container was on a tanker was, but didn't know about the other two types, which are in red. And then the knowledge has improved, but you see some confusion. So there was some confusion for people even after the test. So the research questions, how to construct a game, it's been constructed slowly with play testing to in between the different versions to improve the product with some friends and relatives. So he's shown that you can construct a game within a master project, and he proved that it increases an interest in logistics because everyone said yes. And whether it successfully teaches logistics, we don't know. We need to have a larger sample of probands. So he says that he answers it's good because it motivates and it looks good. So the future work, the game when I loaded it and I started playing it was very, very slow on my computer. So that means my laptop, which is 2 years old, but it's got 16 gigabytes of RAM, and when I bought it 2 years ago, it was pretty good. It's not sufficient. So he said there is lots of scope for optimization. Then if we want to put it in a school, we need about 10 different ship types and more variation in terms of just learning about ship types for people who learn logistics. So we should do that and test it in a school setting. However, there's another layer that we could develop, is like focusing on this vehicle routing problem, where you can actually match the sizes of ships and the volume of cargo to deliver, and you have more complex problems with constraints. So this could be done, and we also have a Java toolset for teaching algorithms that could be plugged at the back, so people could actually test a particular algorithm, how it goes together with this game, and see the differences in performance. And you could let these ships run automatically based on an algorithm. And we should really test it at our school and logistics class. So there's a lot of scope to develop this further. So in summary, we had some very interesting observations. So this is a combined game development methodology where we had user requirements from Thomas Hanne, we had a design canvas, and then during play testing, what turned out, some people got nausea when being on the ship. So this had to be fixed. So he managed to solve this problem quite well. And the whole prototype is an Unreal Engine 4. It raises interest in logistics, conveys some knowledge, and it's overall I found it very appealing aesthetically. But in the interviews after the game, people said that competitiveness was frustrating. So there are quite a few papers in games which say that having this competitive edge actually blocks you from learning, and it's frustrating in this situation. So if you have a learning game, you should make sure that people's adrenaline doesn't get pumped up by racing and jumping and trying to be fast. So there is a conflict there between your brain focusing on performance and your brain focusing on learning. And this is a clear lesson that we should maybe not have the competitive part at the end, but maybe some other second part of the game that does not cause any frustration to anyone. And I'm closing here. There is a video that anyone who wants can play. It's on the SwitchTube, which is the Swiss shared platform for universities and everyone else. It's open, 5 minutes, 50 seconds, and the code is available on GitHub, and I would welcome people to reuse it. And you could extend with various features if it was of any use to anyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ella. Are there any questions in the audience? Yeah.
Have you considered a cooperative mode in the end instead of competitive?
Yeah, I mean, this is an open question. You know, this was the one, I mean, the master thesis has got two terms. The first term is the literature review and idea, and the second term is the implementation. So he came up with this. We're pretty sure about the cooperative mode because I had a paper 2 years ago where we had cooperatively solving a similar challenge in this area, in the algorithmic area. So cooperative work in pairs of two was shown to be really interesting and gave people some idea about optimization without actually getting them stressed. So that's a perfect solution. Yeah, I think that's what we should try.
Another question? Yeah, Mela?
I'm not sure if I understood the gameplay and the perspectives, right? Maybe could you tell a little bit about, apparently they got nauseous, so it was from the first-person perspective? Or is it...
No, third-person perspective, it was all the time. You just look at the ship and the sea and people get nausea. Okay. So I don't know how this happens. I mean, I know that I've had nausea before from movement, so I can... you know, I know that it arises from my experience, but I don't know how it happened exactly, yeah?
Maybe a follow-up question, sorry, about...
Go, Mela.
Sorry?
Yeah, go.
Thank you. So do you choose the path at the beginning and then it just plays out, or do you steer and something happens?
You're basically in the sea and you see those islands. Some are hidden. You could download the game if you wanted. You can download the whole thing, but it's quite a large game, but you can see in the video. So you can either, you know, you're either there and you're steering it like this, or you can get a top view when you suddenly look at it and say, these are my islands. Okay, I can go this way or that way. So you have two views. But it's still quite hard.
Sam?
It's been answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So perhaps just a last question. Do you think the problem suggested in this game is enough complex to raise all the interest of logistics, etc.? Because I'm not specialist in logistics, but it seems for me that in logistics problem rises when we start having multiple variables, optimization, etc. So is it enough complex to sensitize people about logistics and the benefits of logistics?
Well, it doesn't contain that much knowledge at the moment, but I imagine if you gave it to children who are thinking about a future career, and if a teacher introduced this before the gameplay, what it is, and spoke a little bit about it, and show some pictures of various contexts. A game should be used always in teaching in a context, or someone who introduces people to the question of choosing your future career should say what it is, you know, why it's important. Because in a game, you cannot bombard people with information. But then they can, I think if you get some information at the start as a briefing beforehand, and then you play and then you can discuss it, they may have, you know, you get their brains moving. And I think it's a nice experience playing this thing.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.